The NHL regular season has barely begun, and unfortunately, we are already starting to see some injuries happen with this New York Rangers team, as there are two players who will be missing at least a week or two with upper body injuries, as Vincent Trocheck and Carson Soucy have both been injured. Carson got hurt in Game 3 of the season there against the Pittsburgh Penguins in that big 6-1 win, and Vincent Trocheck got hurt in the second game of the season there against the Buffalo Sabres in that nice big 4-0 win. So in today's video, we're going to talk about these injuries, talk about some of the players that have played pretty good and a little maybe bad so far to begin this season. And there are definitely quite a few players that I think have really looked quite solid to begin this season. And also, we're going to talk about the kind of new forward lines we have seen here with, of course, Vincent Trocheck now having to miss some time, as there has been, quite a few different changes with the original lineup that was originally, of course, planned as the season just started. So let's start off here with the injuries, which, of course, we're going to start with the first one, which was Trocheck getting injured in that game against the Buffalo Sabres. And unfortunately, it does seem like he's going to be missing a decent amount of time there, as he has been labeled week to week. He's been placed on IR, injury reserve, and of course, it is an upper body injury. So it definitely is going to hurt this team quite a bit. This is a Rangers team that I think in the first place, don't really have some kind of like amazing elite offense. So to already have lost one of your top two centermen, one of your most important forwards, is definitely going to hurt this team quite a bit. But they do have a decent bit of kind of center depth, so it might not hurt the team as much as it would have in previous seasons, but that doesn't mean it's not going to hurt the team, as, like I said, Vincent Trocheck is truly one of the best and most important forwards on this Rangers team. And the other injury is Carson Soucy, who unfortunately is out now with an upper body injury, just like Vincent Trocheck, but he is out for at least 1 week, it seems like, which has kind of been reported, so may not be quite as long as Trocheck is going to be out for, but still about a week or so, which is not going to be ideal. I do think Carson has also been, pretty good to begin this season, so that's definitely a little disappointing there with kind of how he's played. I think it's been pretty solid. Of course, he has been someone who's been talked about a lot amongst fans, of course, with kind of how things went after being traded from the Vancouver Canucks around the deadline last season. Things didn't go the greatest for the Rangers and Carson, but of course, this team in general was quite, just awful defensively and just were really, really bad for the most part. So I think obviously heading into this season now, this team should be better. We've already seen it be better defensively, especially, and Carson has been a part of that. So seeing him go out already is disappointing and kind of a little sad to see, as he has been playing really good. It seems like him and Borgen were kind of clicking pretty well together there on the second pair. So it's definitely going to be a pretty tough loss for this Rangers team that is already, lacking some talent and just depth in general on the left side of the defense core. They've called up Connor Mackey now, who is a, solid player. I mean, he is a kind of number 8, 9 defenseman, you could say. He's one of those kind of guys who I think, ideally, like he was, of course, he started in the AHL, then got the call up there, which I think is fine. He's that, solid number 8/9 defenseman there, that kind of call up candidate, but the Rangers obviously just don't have a great option there just to kind of slide into that top 4 to help kind of replace Soucy, so it definitely is going to be a pretty big loss for this team. And another part of the injury side of things here for this Rangers team are kind of two players who aren't actually out with injuries. They're still playing, but I would say it's pretty clear they're not really near 100% right now. And that, of course, is Artemi Panarin and JT Miller, the new captain. These are two players that I just think it's pretty clear, if you're watching them play, are not near 100%. They're still being, decent players at moments for sure, but they're not playing near their kind of top level, unfortunately. So I definitely think that is in large part due to, of course, their injuries and the amount of time they had to miss in preseason and training camp. So hopefully, as the games come along here, as the weeks go along, they start to get, really back into shape here, back into gear, and really we can start to see them get back on track to being the players that, we know they can be, the true stars and superstars, of this Rangers team, the two kind of realistically kind of two top forwards for this Rangers squad. And next up here, I wanted to talk about Igor Shesterkin, who has been absolutely incredible to begin this season. This is a guy who is looking like someone who is going to be competing for the Vezina Trophy, the best goalie in the entire NHL award this season. He is someone who has looked incredible to start off here. He obviously had that kind of one goal allowed in the game one there, and that 3-0 loss to the Penguins in the home opener, the season opener, which was, a very disappointing game, but Igor himself did not disappoint. You can't blame the goalie too much there when your team does not score a single goal and lose, so I don't think that's too much on Igor. Of course, he played phenomenal, and then you go into game two there against Buffalo. He gets the shutout and makes a bunch of phenomenal saves once again in another phenomenal performance where the Rangers, this time around, get the win. And of course, they also go out there on Saturday and play the Penguins for the second time already this season. And this time around, the Rangers, of course, come out on top with a nice 6-1 victory. Igor allows the one goal, but once again, he has another pretty phenomenal performance there, making a bunch of great stops. And to begin this season, Igor has, in 3 games played, he's got a shutout, he's got a pretty incredible .67 goals against average, a .976 save percentage, a 2-1 record. He's just been absolutely amazing. And to really get an idea of how good Igor has been, let's take a look at some of the advanced stats here from moneypuck.com, which is a great website if you want to take a look at some advanced stats with, lots of different NHLers, of course. But focusing in here on Igor, he, of course, is leading the entire NHL right now with a 7 goals saved above expected through 3 games played so far, which is not bad at all. He also is leading the entire NHL with percentage of expected goals saved above average with a 77.7. The next closest player there is Jakub Dobeš with a 69.14. Then you've got Jeremy Swayman with a 66.22. Joey Daccord with a 61.32. So it goes to show that Igor is in first place by a pretty good amount in that statistic. And then you take a look at another one there, goals saved above expected per 60 minutes. So that goals saved above expected kind of stat there per 60 minutes. And, Igor, of course, once again, is leading the entire NHL by a pretty good amount. He, of course, has right now in first place a 2.343. The next closest is Thatcher Demko with a 2.257. Then you got Jakub Dobeš with a 2.2 and Joel Hofer with a 2.001. But once again, Igor leads the entire NHL in another pretty good to take a look at advanced goalie stat, which really just goes to show that Igor has been so far the best goalie in the NHL, which is exactly what I was hoping to see. This is someone who I think is going to have a monster season, and I really don't see why he won't be right up there and at least the top 3 or 5 in Vezina voting by the end of the season. And next up, we're going to talk about some other players that I think have played pretty good so far to begin this season, and one player is definitely Mika Zibanejad. Although he hasn't scored a bunch of goals or gotten a bunch of points so far to begin the season, I still think he has looked pretty good and definitely quite a bit improved from last season, especially with Trocheck being out there. I think, so far he looked pretty decent at center, and I just think has looked a lot better from what we saw last season there. He is a lot more kind of engaged there, playing a lot faster, a lot quicker. He's just being a little more kind of energetic out there on the ice, whereas, last season it just felt like so many times he just almost didn't seem to care and, would coast back to the bench from like the center ice dot all the way to the bench or something. Like he would just kind of coast all the way to the bench there. He wasn't given much energy, wasn't playing very intensely, or just wasn't giving a whole lot to the team, whereas this season so far, he's looked a lot more kind of fired up out there. He's playing a lot quicker. He's creating a lot of chances offensively. He's getting in around the net there, creating chances for others and himself. So it definitely feels like he's playing a lot better than what he was throughout last season. But taking a look now at another kind of couple players that I think have been playing pretty good so far to begin this season, and that's a whole line together. And that's the fourth line of the New York Rangers. Adam Edstrom, Sam Carrick, and Matt Rempe, I think, have been phenomenal as a fourth line. I said that I thought they'd be probably one of the better fourth lines in the entire NHL heading into this season, and I definitely am sticking behind that. I think this is a line that can be really beneficial and quite key for this team. We saw against the Penguins in that big 6-1 win, they not only, brought their toughness and physicality and energetic play to the game there, which is something that they need to do as a fourth line, but they also played pretty good defensively, brought a lot of physicality and toughness, but they also went out there and contributed a whole lot offensively. And I'm not expecting this, consistently out of them as a fourth line, but what I do like to see is here and there, every once in a while, you will see a pretty great kind of offense performance from this fourth line. Adam Edstrom has a good amount of skill there. Sam Carrick can have a game here and there where he's looking phenomenal and, creating some great chances offensively. And even a guy like Matt Rempe, he'll have the odd moment here and there offensively where he's, getting that breakaway or, getting a really good look for himself versus for someone else. So I think we're really seeing guys like Edstrom and Rempe, take some steps in their development there. They're looking like better players than last season, which is a great sign as, Edstrom missed quite a bit of time there to begin the season, unfortunately, which, I'm sure kind of, hindered his development a little bit there, but he's looked great to begin this season so far. And, like I said, they had a pretty big offensive performance in that 6-1 win on Saturday against the Penguins, where we saw Sam Carrick and Adam Edstrom both get a pair of assists, so they both got 2 assists each, and then we also saw Matt Rempe get a goal. So in a 6-1 win, we're seeing our fourth line wingers get, one of them 2 assists there, the other one gets a goal, and the centerman gets 2 assists as well. So a 5-point performance there from the fourth line in a 6-1 win, I think is pretty incredible. I think a guy like Noah Laba clearly has looked really good. He has been a great third line center. He, of course, got that, nice 2-point game there, 2 assists against the Penguins on Saturday night. That was also including his first ever NHL point there as well. So I think that's a pretty cool, milestone to get in his first, game getting a point there. He also adds on another one to get a multi-point game. So that was pretty great to see. And, also on one of those goals specifically there as well, he took the puck off the Penguins guy, skates right down the ice there, gets that 2-on-1, makes a nice pass over. Like, he has looked really good so far to begin. It wasn't just about those 2 points. I think he's playing a really good kind of two-way game, solid defensively, is getting a little time here and there in the PK unit. So I just think overall it's looked like a really solid kind of two-way center. And, I definitely think one day will probably end up being a pretty great two-way centerman in the top 6. And, of course, if you've been watching this channel for a very, very long time, you might have remembered when, I posted a video talking about Noah Laba being the clear most underrated prospect in the system a couple years ago now, however long it's been. It's been a good amount of time since that video, but this is someone who I've been very high on for a long time now, and I definitely think is going to be a phenomenal player for the Rangers as the years go on. And of course, there have been some other players as well who have looked pretty good. Foxy so far, I think, is looking like that Norris potential kind of winner. Obviously, he's got, a few goals so far to begin the season there, good amount of points. I think he's looked really good. So he's kind of back in form, it seems like, after a kind of disappointing 2024-25 season. And now let's move on, though, to kind of take a look at, like I said earlier on, the new kind of forward lines that we saw, start off there, of course, on Saturday against the Penguins, with the first game, of course, with Trocheck being out, and they ended up being on the top line. Panarin being centered by Mika Zibanejad, with, of course, still Lafreniere on the other wing. Then for the second line, it was Will Cooley, JT Miller, and Connor Sheary taking that spot of formerly Mika Zibanejad, who, of course, is now taking the spot of Trocheck. Then you had for line 3, it being Juuso Parssinen now jumping into the lineup there after being healthy scratched for the first couple. He takes a spot of Connor Sheary on that left wing spot on the third line, with still remaining as a center on the third line, Noah Laba and Taylor Radish. And then you got for the fourth line, that of course did stay the same with Edstrom, Carrick, and Rempe. But, pretty interesting there, of course. Some kind of flip-flop in there. You've got a guy like, Zibanejad going up there to the top line, get Sheary moving up to the second line. Then you got Parssinen coming in there from being a healthy scratch. So we saw, a few kind of big changes there, of course, to the lineup, which was needed after, seeing a guy like Trocheck go down there. But that is the nice part in having a guy like Zibanejad as a kind of primary winger now, which, of course, was what I was hoping to have, because if you do get an injury, like to a Trocheck like we're seeing now, or a JT Miller, which it's definitely possible, he's already dealt with an injury, so far through training camp and preseason, so having an extra centerman like a Mika Zibanejad, who is a top 6 caliber forward still, although, last season there wasn't phenomenal at center, I think so far this season has looked pretty good, and maybe he can kind of, turn things back around. But either way, worst case, you have him as that kind of fifth centerman to be that guy who can, jump into the top 6 and be a center if needed here and there due to injuries. So that's why I think having him on wing is so great. And, you do have a guy like, Johnny Brodzinski and Juuso Parssinen, who have been, healthy scratched, of course. So they can be guys who can fill in, especially in a bottom 6 role on wing or at center as well, which does help provide that pretty solid depth. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post a video about the New York Rangers every single day. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on, these two injuries to Vincent Trocheck and Carson Soucy. What are your thoughts on the game so far? Who do you think's impressed the most? Do you think's been good? Maybe been a little bad? Do you think Igor is going to be in the running for the Vezina like I'm thinking there? You thinking something else? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.